Welcome back to Paul's Tech News. Spring has arrived at last, but it has done little to warm the hearts of aspiring PC builders out there. This week, AMD taunted us with another GPU launch as the RX 6700 XT theoretically went up for sale on Thursday, then vanished like the proverbial fart in the wind. Intel is waving frantically at us to try to get our attention about CPUs or GPUs or something, so we'll see what that's all about. And I managed to split my tech briefs right down the middle, so there's a good side and a bad side, but don't worry, you'll still have access to both.
Excellent!
Today's video is brought to you by Micro Center, one of my favorite places to buy PC parts, whether it's online or at one of their 25 retail stores in the US. They have consistently competitive prices and an excellent selection of PC hardware and other tech goodies, as well as the custom PC builder on the Micro Center website. Use it to spec out your rig and it will show you parts in stock at your nearest store while ensuring compatibility with your selections. Then you can pick up or have their pros assemble it for you. So click the sponsor link in the description and don't forget to sign up for the free in-store gift.
So let's start with Intel today. There have been so many leaks and early reviews about their upcoming 11th gen core CPUs, codenamed Rocket Lake, that it was almost surprising when they actually officially announced them this week. There are 19 new i3, i5, i7, and i9 Rocket Lake S desktop CPUs launching March 30th, with the i9s being 8-core 16-thread parts, the i7s being also 8-core and 16-thread parts, the i5s being 6-core 12-thread, and the i3s being refreshed Comet Lake parts with 4 cores and 8 threads. Some have pointed out that $539 for the flagship 11900K seems like an uncompetitive price for an 8-core versus AMD's $450 Ryzen 5800X, but others have said that $399 for the unlocked 11700K seems like a competitive price for an 8-core versus AMD's $450 Ryzen 5800X. Keep in mind that these prices are for 1,000 unit bulk purchases, so at retail, these CPUs will be 10 or 20 bucks more. Intel's entire CPU stack can be confusing, and I'm not sure if the i7s and i9s having the same core count and only being distinguished by their clock speeds, TDP, integrated graphics, and features like thermal velocity boost makes things simpler or more confusing. Probably more confusing. Beyond that, Intel will finally add PCIe Gen 4 support, and new LGA 1200 series motherboards are also launching. The premium Z590 motherboards needed for full overclocking support now also sport double the CPU to chipset bandwidth, but are also looking quite pricey, so it's nice that the new H570 and B560 motherboards will reintroduce memory overclocking so you can at least plug in your kit's XMP profile. So keep an eye out for reviews on March 30th, or maybe just read one of these reviews that have already been out, since these CPUs have actually been up for sale in Europe and elsewhere for a couple weeks already. Keep in mind, however, that these reviews are using older microcode, and updates to the code, such as the retesting that Anandtech already performed in the first couple weeks of March, did result in a 2 to 3% boost to performance. Even with that accounted for, though, Rocket Lake still trails AMD's Ryzen 5000 series in gaming performance while consuming a lot more power, which is disappointing. We'll see if the launch reviews tell a different story, or if Intel can hit a good price to performance balance with maybe the 6-core CPUs, or if they can get a leg up by actually keeping their chips in stock, or if builders see some appeal to the models that have a built-in Xe GPU to act as a stopgap gaming solution since the GPU market is so bad right now. I guess what I'm saying is I wouldn't call this launch dead in the water just yet. Speaking of GPUs and Intel, a GDC video posted to their YouTube channel Thursday showed an animation of the new Xe HPG, or High Performance Graphics GPU. But the teaser wasn't just a lifelike rendering of how GPUs are actually made, as shown here. Hidden binary code was found to be an IP address that resolved to xehpg.intel.com, where a landing page says, "Welcome to the Xe HPG scavenger hunt. Launches March 26th, 2021 at 9 a.m. PST. Now, the first clue as to the location of this scavenger hunt may have already been deciphered by Reddit user Fiddler2k though, as more secret text from the video seems to be coordinates that lead to Goat Island near Niagara Falls. Replies quickly noted that there's a Nikola Tesla statue there, so maybe Intel's hunt has kicked off early, or maybe this was their plan all along. Intel CEO Pat Gelsinger has a webcast about the future of the company planned for March 23rd though, so speculation is that more info might be revealed during that event. Maybe they are really close to launching a competitive desktop GPU? I don't know. That'd be nice. And it would help too, because AMD's Radeon RX 6700 XT launched Thursday morning and was immediately shown as out of stock. Some said it was out of stock a half hour before it was supposed to actually launch. Retail prices for third-party cards were listed as high as $830 for the supposedly $480 MSRP GPU, and this is being sold directly by Asus, by the way. AMD's official store threw a 503 error all morning, and consumers flooded social media with complaints about yet another impossible-to-buy graphics card. There is some actual info amongst all the bitterness. I saw a few happy Newegg customers who won the Newegg Shuffle raffle to buy a card at MSRP, which is cool, but also kind of sad that they have to do that. And Micro Center gave some actual data by stating that they had about 70 cards at each store. So that's not zero, and there is a handful of happy gamers out there who picked up a card, but it's a relatively tiny handful compared to the pool of potential buyers in need of a video out solution. AMD did promise to ration out their stock though, so we'll keep an eye for reports out of more batches dropping this week. Speaking of overpriced graphics cards, Nvidia's ill-advised CMP30HX mining GPU has been spotted at retail in Dubai for $723 US. Although the listing is now removed, it was for a palette card with clock speeds eerily identical to their GeForce GTX 1660 Super GP, which isn't too surprising since they're both based on the TU116 GPU. But I thought Nvidia said that these were GPUs that couldn't have otherwise been used for gaming cards. That's kind of odd. I'm sure Nvidia wouldn't have just said that and then actually done something else that turns out is much more profitable for them. Businesses don't do that, do they? Okay, let's do another review highlight. This time it's a super fast SSD, the Western Digital WD Black SN850, as reviewed by Billy Tallis at Anandtech. High-end PCIe 4.0 SSDs are becoming more common, but they're still a premium product, so the fact that WD is using their own controller and flash, or SanDisks rather, but WD bought SanDisk if you remember, but that means that they might be able to differentiate while remaining competitive. And indeed, with 7 GB per second sequential read speeds and up to 5.3 GB per second writes on the fastest 1 TB model, the WD SN850 trades blows with the Samsung 980 Pro and is the clear winner versus the Phison E16 powered Silicon Power US70. SSD prices for basic SATA drives are about 10 cents per gig right now, and only slightly more than that for a decent PCIe 3.0 NVMe SSD. The fastest PCIe 4.0 drives are now about 20 cents per gig, with a 1 TB drive going for $200. That's still expensive for most gaming PCs that won't really take advantage of this speed, but it's a lot better than it used to be. And now for tech briefs, just like the rest of the show but shorter, and since we have good news and bad news today, let's talk about the bad news first. Did you guys see the 3D Crosspoint SSD performance in that Anandtech SN850 review that I just showed you? 3D Crosspoint storage was developed by Intel and Micron. It was at the top of all the charts, but even though it was super fast, it was expensive and adoption was slow. Intel still does R&D on it, but they sold their half of the fab in Utah that makes 3D Crosspoint to Micron. And Micron is now closing the fab because Intel doesn't order enough to remain profitable. So now there's nowhere for Intel to order 3D Crosspoint unless they buy the fab back from Micron, of course. We'll have to wait and see if they do. Also bad news. A motherboard article revealed that there is a gaping flaw in the SMS system that can let a hacker take over your phone number in minutes for like $16. It's not a SIM spoof or swap either. They just use a service by a company called Sakari that helps businesses do SMS marketing and mass messaging to reroute the messages. Take note, if you rely on two-factor authentication via SMS as well, unregulated commercial SMS tools can easily and cheaply let hackers circumvent 2FA and access your data. In other news, I needed a sip of beer after that one. In other news that sucks, Activision Blizzard's esports division will be laying off over 50 people. Overwatch League and Call of Duty League are both affected, since apparently the lesson that Activision Blizzard learned during the pandemic was that they could totally be doing all that esports stuff with way less people and overhead. Good thing too, since they must be feeling the crunch after Activision Blizzard reported a 24% year-over-year revenue growth to investors last month. Well, at least CEO Bobby Kotick still gets his $200 million shareholder value creation incentive bonus. Life is fair. You know what's better than bad news though? Good news. So back at the beginning of March, GitHub user Toast Toast, discovered a way to reduce GTA 5 Online's loading times by up to 70%. That's huge for anyone who has had to deal with the game's abysmal load times since it launched on PC back in 2015. And while Rockstar deserves plenty of criticism for doing nothing about it for 6 years, but at least now they have thanked Toast, and they put their money where their mouth is and awarded him 10 grand via their bug bounty program. Thankfully, Rockstar has promised a game update with the fix included too, so no more waiting a year and a half to get your GTA on when you want to play. I hate robocalls. My phone is pretty much useless as a phone because of them. This won't solve robocalls, but it's good news nonetheless. The FCC has enforced its largest fine ever, $225 million, against Texas-based telemarketers who made over 1 billion robocalls. These miscreants did business under the names Rising Eagle and J-Squared Telecom, targeting hapless victims by falsely claiming to sell health insurance for Aetna, Blue Cross, and Blue Shield, even though they did not in fact sell health insurance for those companies. They were feeding business to a competitor. They should go fornicate themselves, in my opinion. We have more good news, the last good news, and it's about YouTube? I feel like I must be having a fever dream or something. First of all, they're implementing a new copyright violation check that happens as the video uploads. This seems to be an enhancement of their Content ID system, which will hopefully allow creators to spot flagged content before it's published. A recent update to YouTube's rights management facts also shows that copyright owners will now be able to create scheduled takedown requests, meaning that a DMCA takedown request wouldn't cause an immediate strike to a channel. The content uploader would have 7 days to delete the video or work things out with the rights owner. It seems that immediate strikes will still be a thing though, as it is up to the content owner whether or not to make it a scheduled takedown or not, but for many creators, the option to delete a video pre-strike is a big positive. And hey, look at that, we're done with the tech news and I can drink a little bit more of my beer. It was a busy week, but I'm glad we had stuff to talk about. Before you go, your feedback is always welcome, so please feel free to leave me a comment down below. If you're lingering down there, all of the articles I talked about today are linked in the description if you're interested in further reading. You can also click the like button on this video if you enjoyed it. Check out my store at paulshardware.net for a selection of excellent merchandise options, including new beer sets and coasters. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you'd like to see more videos like this one in the future. Thanks again, everyone, and we'll see you in the next one.